Less than 0.5% of all startups ever reach $1 billion valuation. And yet, the man who wrote the blueprint for how to build those companies did it twice, once with PayPal and once with Palantir, before most entrepreneurs even figure out what problem they are trying to solve. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover the core lessons from Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, the book that Silicon Valley insiders call the most honest guide to building something that actually matters. We will cover why competition is for losers, why secrets are the foundation of every great company, and why the most counterintuitive idea in this entire book might completely change the way you think about business, success, and the future. One of these lessons directly contradicts what every business school on earth teaches its students. Stay with us, because that one will hit differently. Peter Thiel is not a typical business author. He co-founded PayPal in 1998, turned it into a multi-billion-dollar company, sold it to eBay, and then made the first outside investment in Facebook, a $100,000 check that eventually became worth over $1 billion. He went on to co-found Palantir, a data analytics company now valued at tens of billions of dollars. He also started the Founders Fund and has backed companies like SpaceX and LinkedIn. 0 to 1 began as a set of notes from a Stanford class Thiel taught in 2012. His student Blake Masters published those notes online, they went viral, and the book was born. It was published in 2014 and has since sold millions of copies worldwide. The title itself tells you everything about Thiel's philosophy. Going from 0 to 1 means creating something genuinely new, something that did not exist before. Going from 1 to N means copying something that already works and scaling it. Most businesses, Thiel argues, do the second thing. They see something successful and they replicate it. But that path, while comfortable, produces marginal gains at best. True value creation, the kind that changes the world and builds lasting wealth, only happens when you go from 0 to 1. Thiel opens with a question he asks in every job interview: tell me something true that almost nobody agrees with you on. He calls this the contrarian question. It sounds simple, but almost no one answers it well. Most people give answers that are edgy on the surface but widely accepted underneath. A genuinely contrarian belief is rare because it requires you to think for yourself rather than absorbing the consensus of the people around you. Thiel believes that great companies are built on contrarian insights, truths about the world that most people are not ready to accept yet. This brings us to one of the most powerful and misunderstood lessons in the book: competition is for losers. Not metaphorically. Literally. Thiel argues that our entire culture glorifies competition. Schools grade students against each other. Companies obsess over market share. Business strategy is framed as war. But the businesses that make the most money are not the ones in the most competitive markets, they are the ones that have escaped competition entirely. Google processes over 90% of all internet searches. It is not competing with anyone in a meaningful way. It dominates. And because it dominates, it prints money. A monopoly, Thiel says, is not a dirty word. It is the goal. Every great business is a monopoly in some sense. But here is what nobody talks about when they repeat this idea. Thiel makes a critical distinction between monopolies that innovate and monopolies that stagnate. He is not defending old-school rent-seeking monopolies that bully markets. He is describing companies that are so good at what they do, so different from everything else available, that they create a category of their own. Apple did not take over the phone market. It created an entirely new kind of product. That is the model. So how do you build a monopoly? Thiel lays out a specific formula. Start small. Dominate a niche. Then expand. He points to Amazon as a perfect example. Jeff Bezos did not start by trying to sell everything. He started with books. Books were easy to ship, had a huge selection problem that physical stores could not solve, and gave Amazon the infrastructure and customer trust to expand into everything else. Facebook started with Harvard students. PayPal started with eBay power sellers. The pattern is always the same: find a small market you can own completely, and own it. Here is a number that will reframe everything you think you know about startups. Thiel says that in a typical venture capital portfolio, a single company will outperform all other investments combined. Not slightly outperform, dramatically outperform. This is called the power law, and understanding it changes how you should think about decisions, risk, and where to put your energy. The power law does not just apply to investing. It applies to your career, your projects, and your time. A few things you do will matter enormously. Most things you do will matter very little. The question is whether you can identify which is which before you invest everything in the wrong one. Thiel also spends considerable time on what he calls the importance of secrets. Every great company, he argues, was built on a secret, something the founders knew or believed that the rest of the world had not yet accepted. Airbnb was built on the secret that people would rent out their homes to strangers. Google was built on the secret that the best way to rank web pages was by counting links as votes. These were not obvious ideas at the time. They were contrarian beliefs that turned out to be right. He asks a devastating question: what important truth do very few people agree with you on? If you cannot answer that question in the context of your business, you might not have a real business. You might just have a copy of something that already exists, dressed up in slightly different clothing. The most valuable companies of the future will be built by people who see secrets that others cannot see, and who have the courage to act on them. Thiel's view of the future is structured around a fascinating 2x2 framework. You can have a definite or indefinite view of the future, and you can be optimistic or pessimistic. Definite optimism means you believe the future will be better and you have a specific plan for making it so. This describes America from roughly the 1940s through the 1960s, the era of the moon landing, the interstate highway system, massive infrastructure projects. Indefinite optimism, by contrast, means you believe things will probably work out but you have no specific vision for how. Thiel argues this describes America today. We are optimistic but vague. We trust processes over plans. We hire consultants instead of visionaries. And the result is a society that improves slowly and incrementally rather than making the bold leaps that change everything. This is where Thiel's analysis becomes genuinely uncomfortable, because it applies to individuals as much as nations. How many people have a definite, specific vision for their future? And how many are just generally hoping things improve? Thiel says indefinite optimism is a kind of intellectual cowardice. Real builders have real plans. The final major theme is about founders themselves. Thiel has a striking observation: the most successful founders tend to be slightly eccentric, slightly outside the mainstream. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, none of them fit neatly into any conventional category. Thiel argues this is not a coincidence. Founders need to be different enough from the crowd to see what the crowd cannot see, but coherent enough to build teams and execute. The best founders are insiders and outsiders at the same time. They understand the rules well enough to know exactly which ones to break. 0 to 1 is ultimately a book about thinking, specifically, about how rare and valuable genuine original thought actually is. Thiel's core argument is that the next generation of world-changing companies will not be built by people who optimize existing systems. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Book Notes Daily for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.